Speaking of those big conferences, though, we now move on to the Big 12. We move into the Big 12 conference here, and Big 12 is going to be interesting. Big 12 was a very fun conference to watch this past season. Big 12, man, we didn't see Texas. We didn't see Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship. We saw TCU and Kansas State vying for that conference championship. That was what we witnessed. And odds makers in Vegas going into last season, they had TCU and Kansas State in the middle of the pack. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Texas really plays things out. But we witnessed Texas have a recalibration of expectations in the middle of the season, right? Because we saw Texas play Alabama in Austin, Texas. And what we saw was Texas lost the game, but Texas lost on the last second field goal to Alabama. And dare I say, if Quinn Ewers didn't get hurt in that game, I actually thought Texas probably beats Alabama in that game if we're being realistic. And I'll talk about Alabama a little bit later. But from that game, we saw a recalibration of expectations. And unfortunately, injuries to the quarterback positions, those recalibrated expectations, they didn't live up to that. They did not make it to the Big 12 championship game. And they didn't win, I believe it's the Alamo Bowl that they went to play Washington. They didn't beat Washington in the Alamo Bowl. I'll talk about them later as well. But Texas, if you want to talk about wide receiver cores, they might have one of the most explosive wide receiver cores in the country. I think Ohio State is number one, but Texas, I don't think Texas is too far behind. The question with Texas is, can Quinn Ewers stay healthy? And can he grow in year two of the Steve Sarkisian offense? And also, can Xavier Worthy reduce his drop percentage? Because Xavier Worthy is one of the most dynamic athletes in the entire country. There's no doubt about that. However, do we believe that he can focus on putting more focus on catching the football? Because 6% is one of the worst in the country. If Xavier Worthy has the ball in his hands, he's a very dynamic athlete. He can go for a big play at any moment. Schedule does fall pretty favorably for the Texas Longhorns, especially in conference play. We know about their non-conference. They'll start with Rice, and as long as they don't play with their food, they'll go 1-0. In terms of national expectations, that Alabama game on September 9th is going to tell us a lot about this Texas team, but then they close out with Wyoming. So bare minimum, they'll be 2-1. So they're on the road against Baylor. Baylor's a solid squad, could give them some trouble. They have the Oklahoma and the Red River rivalry. That's a neutral site game. On the road versus Houston, home versus BYU, and then they have Kansas State and TCU. TCU, I definitely don't believe is going to be the same team as last year. The biggest challenge I think that they'll have in the Big 12 conference is their last game, November 24th. So November 24th is home against Texas Tech. They got a really darn good offense out there in Texas Tech. They're bringing a lot of their production back as well. So if anyone prevents them from going to the conference championship, it could be Texas Tech. But again, they're not on that divisional format. So just two best teams straight up will go to the conference championship. Regardless of where they are in the conference geographically, they'll be there. So I do think for Texas, not saying that they go out and win a national championship here, but I do think that you want to talk about winning the Big 12. I think Texas finally gets the job done. They haven't done it since 2009, but just because you haven't done something in a while doesn't mean you can't do it. I think Texas, for the first time in 14 to 15 years, a high school age kid, mind you, they're going to win the Big 12, and that will be Texas' last Big 12 championship title because they are, of course, leaving for the SEC. I don't think Oklahoma is not they'll be better than 6-7, but I don't think they're going to compete. And I think this is Texas' years to shine. I truly believe so.